Perhaps the most consistent theme on Innovate 2016 is that government doesn't work, that it needs to be reinvented, it needs to be disrupted, but very few people know how to do it. My guest today, Bill Edgars, who is the director of Deloitte's Center for Government Excellence, is it, Bill?
Government Insights,
Whoops,
yes.
That was a Freudian error. Government Insights versus Government Excellence. Bill Edgars is an expert on reinventing government. He's just out with a new book, Delivering on Digital. Bill Edgars, welcome to Innovate 2016.
It's great to be with you today.
So Bill, government doesn't work. Is that fair?
It's not fair completely. Government often does work, but too often, government's a little bit behind the private sector in terms of its adoption of technology. I wrote another book called If We Could Put a Man on the Moon that looked at over 100 big government initiatives since World War II to answer a simple question: why do some succeed, why do some fail? And I wrote this book because after healthcare.gov, it was very, very apparent that doing digital well is very, very different than doing traditional government programs and service delivery. So I wanted to write a book about how does government get digital technologies right, because I think it's the most important and transformative thing happening to government today.
I couldn't agree more, Bill. So how are we going to do it?
Well, the first thing you have to do is government needs people with a digital mindset. They need to attract and retain and train people of a digital mindset, which we see all over Northern California. I believe in openness, I believe in agility and co-creation and a deep, deep kind of user centricity.
But why would anyone want to do that when there are so many opportunities around here to work in an exciting startup? Why would anyone want to go and bash heads with bureaucrats?
Well, yes, you could work in a startup and do the 100th different dating app, or you could actually try to solve some of society's biggest problems by working in government, but also with a bigger ecosystem. I mean, it's mission that's going to attract people. The administration, through 18F, their digital studio and their US digital service, which started up after healthcare.gov, they've now attracted over 300 of the best and brightest technologists from Silicon Valley and other tech centers to come to work because they want to solve problems.
So what are we talking about, Bill? We're talking about creating transparency, efficiency. What is the core reform that needs to be made in government when it comes to digital?
Well, when you look at what government does, a lot of what government does is paperwork factories. The IRS, Social Security, that should be 100% digitized, and you're going to see much, much lower costs and a lot less friction between individuals, businesses, and government. Now, government also does a lot of things which are physical in nature: roads and education, transportation, and for there you're going to see a digital overlay put over those, and it's going to allow you digital technologies and Internet of Things, cognitive technologies are going to allow you.
Blockchain, I would assume as well.
What's that? Blockchain, absolutely. Allow you to thoroughly reimagine how those services are provided. And that's the excitement today. We have to go beyond websites and apps and everything to really look at how do we reimagine government using today's technologies.
What are the problems? What are the roadblocks in terms of doing this? Because it's a no-brainer. We all know that we need this.
Well, one of the roadblocks is simply a failure to imagine what is possible. For instance, think about our prison system. We have 1.5 million nonviolent offenders in prison today in America, far more than any other country. With digital technologies, actually, it can enable you through a mobile phone and electronic kind of tagging, you could actually virtually incarcerate offenders, and at the same time they could pay their taxes, they could be having a job, and that's a very, very different mindset and way of thinking about this, and we just need to do a lot more of that. Now, there's also lots of other problems. There's legacy systems, some of the green screen, I mean, if you go into some of the government departments, you're talking 30, 40-year-old COBOL systems with green screens, and modernizing that is a big challenge. We spend 75% of the $90 billion spent on federal government IT is spent maintaining these very old, antiquated systems. And so we have to get out of that and moving into more modern systems.
Why isn't this a bigger issue in the election? Why don't Trump and Clinton talk about it?
Well, I think it's always hard. I've been working on government reform for 27 years now, and it's always hard.
You don't even look 27.
I know. It's always hard.
It's a good way to keep you young, yeah?
To get these, part of that sort of a campaign. But we did actually just see Hillary Clinton give a big technology and innovation speech this summer. And in that speech, she outlined in detail an agenda for how digital technologies are going to help to reinvent how we think about regulation, service delivery, and a whole variety of other areas.
Did she get it, or does she get it, Hillary, do you think?
I think so. I mean, in fact, a lot of it was saying they're going to continue a lot of the positive reforms from the Obama administration. And I think we need to go even past that because there's a lot of opportunities. But she talked about continuing prizes and challenges and the digital studio and so forth, and continuing to build on Obama's legacy in the technology sphere.
What about on the other side, looking at it from Trump's point of view, can this make America great again?
Well,
why do you laugh?
We actually haven't seen any policy from the Trump campaign so far.
Surprise,
looking at technology.
Maybe he can fix it on his own, on his Twitter account, right?
But I think this is an area that there's a lot of bipartisan consensus about. I mean, there really is in terms of what needs to happen. And this is the biggest change. Governments from Seoul to London to Ottawa, they're all facing these same sort of challenges. How do we deal with this continuing pace of technology? And how do we basically use that and leverage it to really remake how government operates and make it much easier for us individuals to interact with government. One of the best governments in the world on this is the government of Estonia. The Estonian government, because they came around with independence, right during the internet age, and they didn't have the legacy systems. In Estonia, you give your information to government once, any level of government, you never have to give it again. It's called once only. And just opening up a business, you can do that at the same time it takes to kind of go into the coffee shop and get a cup of coffee. Almost all your tax data is pre-populated, and you as an individual can see every government official who's ever looked at your data.
So the future of America, in short, Bill Eggers, needs to be Estonia, right?
Well, it was funny, actually, the Estonian president came to the White House and he met with President Obama, and they had a press conference, and afterwards President Obama said, maybe we should have the Estonians build healthcare.gov. That's a joke. But they're considered kind of rock stars in this area, but there's a lot of other countries doing interesting things. New Zealand, Korea, the city here of San Francisco is a real leader in basically trying to tap into the wider technology ecosystem to innovate around big issues facing the city.